What happens when a president launches a major foreign policy initiative, but large sections of the public still aren't entirely sure what the end goal is supposed to be? That's one of the key questions at the center of today's discussion. In this edition of American Week, Simon Marks takes a closer look at Donald Trump's handling of the conflict with Iran, the administration's messaging, and the growing debate over whether the White House has clearly communicated its objectives to the American people. But that's only part of the story. The conversation also touches on rising fuel prices, public frustration, questions about accountability, and concerns over who is benefiting while ordinary Americans continue to deal with economic pressures. As you watch, pay close attention to the contrast between political messaging and public perception. Are voters being given a clear explanation of what's happening? Are the administration's actions matching its rhetoric? And how much does public trust matter when major international decisions are being made? I'd love to hear what you think. Do political leaders have a responsibility to fully explain military actions to the public, or do voters ultimately judge results more than explanations? Let me know in the comments below. Interesting insights ahead. Let's watch the clip together, and I'll give you my thoughts at the end. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more political commentary and analysis.
Never mind the full week, President Trump has been on quite a journey just over the last 5 days. Let's spool back to Monday afternoon when CNBC's anchor Eamon Javers gave him a call on that much-coveted cell phone number that Washington reporters have been scrambling to get hold of, and the president picked up. Mr. Javers takes it from there.
We had this report at the top of the day today that the Iranians were actually breaking off negotiations with the United States. That moved oil markets. And so that's what I asked the president about. I said, do you think the negotiations are over now, or is this a bluff by the Iranians? The president said, I don't care if they're over, honestly. I really don't care. I couldn't care less. If they're over, they're over. If they're not, I think they took too much time. Frankly, I think they started to get a little boring.
Oh, the talks got a little boring. That, by the way, was hauntingly familiar because back in March, less than a month after he began his strategy-free war on Iran, the president's officials were privately telling reporters he was already getting bored with it. Imagine how bored he must be now it's June. If only he had an Xbox instead of access to the largest military arsenal in the world. We could all have been spared a lot of hassle, and American motorists could still be paying $2 a gallon. But he doesn't, they're not, and he appeared to concede in his conversation with Mr. Javers that they won't be for a long time to come.
He said, ultimately, if the Iranians want to try and have a nuclear weapon, I will blow them up to kingdom come. He said what this is all about for him is a strongly held conviction that the Iranians should not ever be allowed to have a nuclear weapon, and that American voters will tolerate higher gas prices as long as they know what the goal is here.
But they don't know what the goal is here. First, because that strongly held conviction that Iran was on the brink of getting a nuclear weapon is not supported by any evidence. And the president himself said last month that he didn't have time to explain the conflict to American voters. If it sounds like you'd get more maturity from a 4-year-old, take a listen to what happened yesterday in the Oval Office. Pete Ducey, chief White House correspondent for Fox News, had heard whispers that the president might agree to a face-to-face meeting with Iran's new supreme leader. I mean, that wouldn't be boring at all, would it?
If I did meet, I'd be honored to meet him. I'd like to see if we make a deal. But if we make a deal, it's possible that I would meet him. I'd be okay with that.
Would that happen here in the U.S., White House?
Oh, I don't know, Peter. I haven't really heard too much about it. I didn't suggest it, but some people have suggested it. If it happened, it would happen. I'd be respectful.
But in what passes these days for Washington reporters holding power to account, Mr. Ducey pressed him. Did the president think that the new supreme leader might have a beef with him because he'd ordered the killing of the old supreme leader, who was his dad?
Well, I would say I'm not his favorite person. But with that being said, he's probably I don't know. He's probably a professional. In some circles, he has a very good reputation, actually. Sometimes some people say bad, but a lot of people say bad about me. It's totally false, of course.
Now, I could remind you that the president has previously described the new supreme leader as unacceptable and a lightweight, and that he has also publicly questioned on numerous occasions whether Mojtaba Khamenei is even still alive. Or I could just ask you again, how did we get here to a place where an American president who has, on a whim, sent the entire global economy into an unnecessary crisis now can't really be bothered to clean up the mess he has created because he's bored by negotiations with Iran? Let's see how his Secretary of State and possible successor Marco Rubio couched things when he testified this week on Capitol Hill. He's being questioned here by Senator Cory Booker, a Democrat from New Jersey.
Iran has lost a substantial percentage of their missile launchers, and their economy is far worse today, and I mean far worse today, than it was 6 to 9 months ago. And they are looking at hundreds of billions of dollars of reconstruction costs just to get to where they were 6 months ago.
Mr. Rubio, you keep telling us how we're winning this war. The president keeps saying,
well, the war's over
completely
now.
Annihilated. The war is not over. And yet the American people see how we're losing at the pump and with their costs, and yet this thing still hasn't been resolved.
Now, there is another narrative possible here, that while the American people are suffering, as Senator Booker indicated, in fact, the country's ruling elite is doing just fine. More than fine in many cases. First, the president's mates in the oil industry are making out like bandits. America, as he likes to remind us regularly, is now the world's largest producer of oil. It's responsible for almost a fifth of daily global production. And the country's oil majors are therefore coining it, and will do unless and until those boring negotiations find a way of getting the Strait of Hormuz reopened. Meanwhile, evidence has been growing that the Trump family is also benefiting financially during this crisis.
You know what's crazy? The President of the United States trading stocks. We all know people in Washington should not be playing the stock market. It's pretty basic.
That is Senator Mark Kelly, a Democrat from Arizona, blowing the whistle on the news that President Trump's personal stock market portfolio has benefited from thousands of trades this year, including buying gobloads of shares in Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics and Northrop Grumman, three of the country's largest military suppliers.
Came out recently that Trump made hundreds of millions of dollars in stock trades since the start of this year. Literally thousands of trades. And not only is he trading these stocks, he's using his platform to promote the same companies that he's invested in. It's blatant corruption, and it's abuse of his office so he can become richer.
Now, the White House says there's nothing to see here. The president has nothing to do with his account. It's allegedly in the hands of third parties. They have the sole and exclusive authority to make investment decisions on his behalf, in which case I'd like to meet them, because my microscopic portfolio could certainly benefit from their stewardship. It is also important to underscore that Democrats are no slouches when it comes to making remarkably prescient investment decisions of their own. Indeed, Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the House, is so good at it that there's even a company that allows you to invest in an account that mirrors every single trade she makes. But let's get back to the Trumps, plural, because this week we got fresh evidence that never mind the working stiffs in the rest of America, for the president's daughter Ivanka and her husband Jared Kushner, life is a financial dream.
I'm working on an incredible project with my husband in the Mediterranean. It's massive in scale.
I think that's an understatement. Can you explain?
Yes, it is.
There's no power on this island. You're building everything from scratch, correct?
Well, it's an unbelievable, beautiful 1,400 hectare private island in the middle of the Mediterranean. We were on a friend's boat and we stopped for a swim. Effectively, that's how we found it. We swam to the island. We went on a hike, barefoot all the way up to the top, and we were just captivated.
Now, let me just emphasize here that this weekend, millions of Americans will be struggling to pay for their groceries, their airfares, and a tankful of unleaded. Food poverty is real in the United States. Credit card delinquencies are soaring to their highest rates in a decade. The numbers of people taking loans from their retirement accounts has reached levels where even the IRS, America's equivalent of HMRC, is warning people not to do it. But for Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner, It's just a great time to be in the proximity of power.
I was on a vacation after we left government in the summer of 2021. We were on our friend Nat Rothschild's boat. We got picked up in Montenegro, and then we started sailing over to Corfu, and we spent a couple days in Albania. One of the nights there, Prime Minister Rama came to the boat. I had not met him when I was in government, but I was very, very impressed with his vision for what he wanted to do with Albania. I really didn't know anything about the country. I didn't understand the history, and the darkness of the history with the communism and the terrible leadership actually led to it being fully undeveloped.
Let's just stop him there for a second to dwell not on the casual Nat Rothschild name drop, but on the astonishing gaps in Jared Kushner's knowledge. The bloke who is back in government now, negotiating with the Iranians, the Saudis and Vladimir Putin, discloses that he never knew Albania was a Stalinist hellhole cut off for decades from the rest of Europe by brutal dictator Enver Hoxha. Makes you wonder what else he doesn't know, but he definitely senses personal opportunity when it knocks.
And then about a year later, we started looking at opportunities in the Balkans. And the partner who's leading that effort, I said, you know what, let's go down to Albania. I had such a good experience there. Go check it out, see if there's something there. And we were immediately drawn to where they were building an airport in Vlore. And obviously a country is going to build an airport by the coast in the place that they think is the most beautiful. So we went there, we looked for opportunities, and we were able to find some incredible opportunities.
Don't you just love it when life works out and you can build a $1.6 billion off-grid resort, marina and residential complex on your own private island in the Mediterranean? Well, it turns out the Albanians don't love it. All week long, thousands of people have taken to growing protests in the Albanian capital Tirana, demonstrating against the government's agreement with the Trumps and clashing with security forces. They mobilised after the site was sealed off with razor wire and bulldozers moved in. Protest leaders say there has been no public consultation, and they claim the project is a threat to the island's rich biodiversity. Albania is not for sale, shout the protesters. Prime Minister Rama said this week there is absolutely no chance that the investment will stop as long as he remains in power, which is only making demonstrators more determined to try and force him out. It should not be lost on any of us, I think, that in the United States' 250th birthday year, the Albanian people are proving to be more exercised over public corruption than the Americans. Yes, we've had the No Kings rallies, but 16 months into this president's second term, the White House is not being besieged by daily protests, despite alleged corruption and influence peddling that is taking place in plain sight. Venality is a modern American hallmark, but in some places, it seems, there isn't much of an export market for it.
Here's the question that stands out after listening to that discussion. Can any administration successfully sustain public support for a major international conflict if voters don't fully understand the purpose, strategy, or end goal? That seems to be one of the central issues raised throughout this conversation. What makes this discussion particularly interesting is that it wasn't focused solely on foreign policy. Instead, it examined how international events can quickly become domestic political issues. The strongest argument presented was that decisions made overseas don't stay overseas. They affect fuel prices, household budgets, economic confidence, and ultimately public opinion. Whether viewers agree with that assessment or not, it's difficult to deny that many voters tend to evaluate foreign policy through the lens of how it affects their daily lives. Another notable aspect was the discussion surrounding messaging and consistency. The conversation highlighted the challenge political leaders face when public statements, negotiations, and policy objectives appear to evolve over time. Critics may view that as a lack of clarity, while supporters may argue it reflects flexibility in a rapidly changing situation. Either way, clear communication remains a crucial part of leadership, especially during periods of uncertainty. The discussion also explored broader questions about influence, wealth, and public trust. One of the underlying themes was whether political power and financial opportunity are becoming increasingly intertwined. That's a debate that extends far beyond any one administration and continues to resonate across the political spectrum. What I found most interesting is how the conversation repeatedly returned to accountability. Not simply whether decisions were right or wrong, but whether the public is receiving enough information to properly evaluate those decisions. In any democracy, that's a fundamental question. So, what do you think? Has the administration effectively explained its goals and strategy to the American people? Do voters care more about transparency or outcomes? And how much should economic consequences influence public support for foreign policy decisions? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, because this is exactly the kind of discussion where different perspectives can lead to a better understanding of the issues. The biggest takeaway from this conversation is that leadership isn't just about making decisions. It's also about explaining those decisions in a way that earns public confidence. When that confidence starts to weaken, even successful policies can become politically difficult to sustain. If you enjoyed this analysis, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and join the discussion at the comments section. Thanks for watching.